Hello everyone, my name is Nguon Chanhout. I'm going to talk about the element of measure for measure. Here is the table content for the whole presentation with introduction, body detail, and the conclusion. First, we come to know the meaning of the titles. To give measure for measure means to pay someone back exactly, whether returning a good deed or avenging a wrong. This biblical saying comes from the Gospel of Matthew, in which Jesus warned his disciples not to judge one another. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged, and with the measure of you use, it will be measured to you as well. So, this story wrote by William Shakespeare was a renowned English poet, playwright, and actor born in 1564, widely regarded as the greatest writer in the English language and the world's greatest dramatist. There are some words to notice such as traitor, in nouns, a person who is not loyal or stop being loyal to their own country, social class or belief in others. Mercy, in nouns, kindness that makes you forgive someone, usually someone that you have authorities over. Justice, nouns, fairness in the way people are dealt with. Below are some main characters such as Isabella. The main character Isabella is a very virtuous and chaste young woman who faces a difficult decision when her brother is sentenced to death for fornication. And another one is the Duke. The other central figure is the Duke, who spends most of his time dressed as a friar in order to observe what is happening in his absence. Claudio, Isabella's brother. Claudio is a young man sentenced to death for impregnating an unmarried woman. And Los Angelo. Angelo is the villain of the play, a man who rules strictly and without mercy. Escalus is a wise lord who advises Angelo to be more merciful. And the last one is about Mariana. Mariana was supposed to marry Angelo, but he called the wedding off when she lost her daughters in the shipwreck that killed her brother. In the setting of this story, Shakespeare set a measure for measure in the Catholic city of Vienna. By the time Shakespeare audience were watching his play, England had become a strict Protestant country. In this play, Shakespeare wanted to create an environment in which there are still nunneries, as the play has Isabella's life as a nun as a central idea. Now let's see the plot with the exposition. Angelo offers to spare Claudio's life if Isabella will sleep with him, but she is about to become a nun and so refuses in order to protect her chastity. And Isabella visits her brother Claudio in prison and explains Angelo's offer and her refusal. The Duke, disguised as a friar, overhears their conversation. Claudio begs Isabella to submit to Angelo, but she refuses. In the rising action, with Angelo in charge, Claudio is sentenced to death for fornicating with his girlfriend and getting her pregnant. His head for the chopping block if someone doesn't intervene on his behalf. Next is about climax. The climax of the play, of course, in Act 5, once, and when the Duke, still disguised as a friar, arranged a meeting near the city gate with Isabella, Mariana, and Angelo. Isabella comes forward and declares that Angelo is an adulterous thief, and the entire intrigue is revealed. And Mariana supports this by explaining that it is she who has shared Angelo bad and not Isabella. The Duke then removes his disguise to reveal his true identity. As a result of this occurrence, Angelo is made to acknowledge and accept his fall. To the another one is about a falling action, bad trick. Angelo thinks he's steamed up the window with Isabella, but has in fact slept with Mariana, the girl he dumped when he found out she didn't have a dowry. But Angelo reneged on the deal and ordered Claudia to be put to death anywhere. The last one is the part of the resolution. A friar Peters come forward to support Isabella's story, and Mariana confirmed that she was the one who slept with Angelo and that he had earlier refused to marry her. The Duke to also confirm Isabella and Mariana's story, and during a scuffle, is revealed to be the returned Duke. One the Duke ordered Friar Peters married Mariana to Angelo, whom the Duke immediately condemned to death. The two women plead for Angelo's life, and the Duke relents. The Duke then has both Bernardine and Claudia brought before him, free Bernardine and reunite Isabella with her brother. Lucio is forced to marry the prostitute he met pregnantly and is then condemned to death so that his widow can inherit his money. The play ends when the Duke appears to propose marriage to Isabella, who does not answer him. Next part, we come to know the symbolism. There are two symbolisms raised. One, the conveyance of the poor clears, seen only in Act 1, is the physical embodiment of the Isabella's unworldly ideas. It serves as a haven for those who, like her, desire a strict and uncompromisingly chaste way of life. And second one is at the opposite end of the Vienna moral axis is Brussels. Most notably the house of the resort run by Mistress Overdone. It is too simplistic to pronounce the convents good and the process evils. It's gonna be three themes such as mercy versus justice, and the conflict between mercy and justice is the headline issue of Measure for Measure. And second one is a high post crisis. The play or treatment of justice is complicated by the human frailty of its character, including those in power. Angela, the virtuous deputy who succumbed to temptation, is the prime example. And the last one is the role of women. Each woman in the play is controlled by the force of the patriarchy. They are vastly different characters, but their social standing are limited by the man in their life. Now come to the short summary part. Shakespeare measure formation center around the fate of the Claudia, who is area by Los Angeles and the temporary leader of Vienna. Angela is left in charge by the Duke, who pretends to leave town but instead dress as a friar to observe the going on in his absence. Angela is strict, moralistic, and unwavering in his decision making. He decided that there is too much freedom in Vienna and take it upon himself to rid the city of process and unlawful sexual activity. Law against this behavior and institution already exist. And Angelo simply decided to enforce them more strictly. Claudia is arrested for impregnating Juliet, his lover, before they were married, although they were engaged and their sexual intercourse was consensual. Claudia is sentenced to death in order to serve as an example to the other Viennese citizens. Isabella, Claudia's sister, is about to enter a nunnery when her brother is arrested. Isabella is in a way let off the hook when the Duke dressed as a friar intervenes. He tells her that Angela's former lover, Mariana, was engaged to be married with him, but he abandoned her when she lost her dowry in a shipwreck. The Duke formed a plan by which Isabella will agree to have sex with Angela, but the Mariana will go in her place. The next morning, Angela will pardon Claudio and be forced to marry Maria, and according to the law, everything goes according to plan, except that Angela does not pardon Claudio, fearing revenge. Isabella tells her story and the Duke pretends not to believe her. Eventually, the Duke reveals his dual identity and everyone is forced to be honest. Angelo confesses to his misdeed. Claudia is pardoned and the Duke asks Isabella to marry him at the end. As far as the relative, we know the cultural point that always connects with the racism and gender. So here is about the cultural point that I want to point out is the Measure for Measure is a play that seems to come of age in the 21st century globalized world. The conflict is present between individual rights to sexual freedom and the responsibility of rulers to regulate their subjects' sexual behavior is once again a live issue in the politics of human rights across the world. And in this, in the fiercely acute debate within the international women movement about the regulation of sex work. In every modern society, it's possible to find examples of the social behavior depicted in the play. Rulers sometimes execute citizens for illegal sexual relationships. Powerful men have been known to expect sexual favor in return for doing their job. And marriage is sometimes still imposed as a way of solving a social rather than a personal problem. An interesting quote is, "The law had not been dead, and solid hard slap." Angelo is one of the Vietnam highest ranking judge, so naturally he has a stockpile of high sounding phrases about law and justice. Here he justifies his strict enforcement of the law by reminding listeners that the law was technically in effect all along. Angela is not making up new rules, not yet anyway, but simply correcting down on the violence of the existing rules. In the conclusion, Measure for Measure is a play written by William Shakespeare. It's considered the problem of the moral issues of mercy, justice to play out in real life and in relation to one's own struggle with pride and humanity. One of the main discussion points of the play is about the problem with taking any moral stand to an extreme in one's life. It creates its own set of problems. The dilemmas within the plot occur because someone took a moral virtue to an extreme until it's become a problem. Morals are important. Shakespeare's intention is to warn against adhering to moral values so strictly that other virtues, such as mercy, are lost. Shakespeare was teaching a greater moral lesson of balancing mercy and justice. Okay, to be better about the story, I would like to add a short summary video of Measure for Measure. Hope you enjoy it at the end. Thanks.
Duke Vincentio is ruler of Vienna. He leaves his younger, much stricter deputy, Angelo, in his stead while he adopts the disguise of a monk in an undercover operation to learn more about the lives of his people and to test the abilities of his deputy, Angelo. The Duke's been rather lax in his enforcement of the law, so Angelo, in an attempt to rectify this, chooses to make an example of a young gentleman named Claudio. Claudio has been sentenced to death by Angelo for having broken the law by getting his fiancée, Giulietta, pregnant. Claudio's sister, Isabella, is keen to take her vows as a nun and enter into the sisterhood of St. Clare's. When she's told of her brother's plight, she goes to Angelo and begs for his life to be spared. Stern at first, Angelo begins to yield to her virtue. The next day, he turns nasty and decides to offer Claudio freedom in exchange for Isabella's virginity. Mortified, she concludes, "More than our brother is our chastity," and goes to tell Claudio that he must die. Unsurprisingly, Claudio isn't very keen to die, especially when his sister can so easily save his life. Isabella is outraged and accuses her brother of being wicked and even incestuous with his demands. The Duke, who is still disguised as a friar, overhears this exchange. He proposes that Isabella consent to Angelo's demands and send one Mariana, who is Angelo's ex-fiancée, in her stead to perform the deed. If it's dark, the idea is that Angelo won't notice the difference. Despite thinking that he's bedded Isabella, Angelo gives orders to have Claudio executed anyway. The Duke orders the jailer or provost to send the head of a pirate to Angelo instead of Claudio's as proof of his death. Once again, the idea is that Angelo won't know the difference. The Duke officially returns to the city and is immediately accosted by Isabella, who complains about Angelo's hypocrisy. Mariana shows up and claims to be Angelo's official wife. Everyone gets very confused until the Duke finally reveals that he'd been disguised as a monk all along, and he reveals that Claudio is in fact alive. He makes Angelo marry Mariana, reunites Claudio with his sister, who is also reunited with Giulietta and their new baby, and he proposes marriage to Isabella twice. The play famously ends with silence and no clarity on whether or not Isabella accepts the Duke's offer.